In 1873, the United States government made a decision that would spark riots, destroy fortunes, and reshape the global economy for over a century. They called it the crime of 1873. But here's what they don't teach you in school. For 200 years, your government has been playing a game with silver. And you? You were never supposed to know the rules. What's up, everyone? Before we dive in, let me ask you something. Do you know what's in your pocket right now? Probably some dollar bills, maybe a credit card. But 150 years ago, what was in people's pockets was actual silver. Real, tangible money. And the government hated that. Because when you control the money, you control everything. But when the people hold real silver, that's power they couldn't manipulate. So they spent 2 centuries figuring out how to take that power away. This story has everything. Political scandals, economic warfare, secret meetings, angry mobs, and one of the biggest wealth transfers in American history. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why silver is still being talked about today in financial circles as one of the most manipulated assets on Earth. So buckle up. This is going to get wild. Let's go back to 1792. George Washington is president. America is brand new. And Congress passes the Coinage Act, which does something revolutionary. It establishes a bimetallic standard. That's a fancy way of saying both gold and silver were official money. And here's the kicker. They set a fixed ratio. 15 ounces of silver equaled 1 ounce of gold. This wasn't arbitrary. This was based on market prices at the time. Now, why does this matter? Because when you make 2 metals official currency at a fixed ratio, you create something economists call Gresham's law. Bad money drives out good money. If silver becomes worth more than that 15-to-1 ratio in the market, people hoard it and only spend gold. If gold becomes worth more, they hoard gold and only spend silver. It's human nature. You keep the valuable stuff and spend the less valuable stuff. For decades, this system worked, mostly. But then, in 1848, something happened that changed everything. The California gold rush. Suddenly, there's tons of gold flooding into the economy. The gold-to-silver ratio starts shifting, and the government? They're starting to sweat. Because maintaining this bimetallic standard is becoming a nightmare. But the real chaos? That's about to begin. Because there are powerful people who want to change the game entirely. By the 1870s, America is transforming. The Civil War is over. The railroad barons and industrial tycoons are rising. And there's this quiet conversation happening in Washington among bankers, politicians, and businessmen. They want to move to a gold standard. Why? Control. If money is only gold, and gold is rare, they can control the money supply. Deflation becomes inevitable. And deflation? That's great if you're a creditor, a banker, someone who loans money. Because people pay you back in money that's worth more than when they borrowed it. But it's terrible if you're a farmer, a worker, someone who owes money. Your debts become harder to pay. So in February 1873, Congress passes the Fourth Coinage Act. Sounds boring, right? Just some technical legislation about coins? Buried in this legislation is one tiny clause. It discontinues the standard silver dollar. Just removes it from production. Silver is no longer legal tender for large transactions. America is effectively on a gold standard. And here's the thing. Most congressmen didn't even realize what they were voting for. The bill was hundreds of pages. Technical. Dense. By the time people figured out what happened, the damage was done. And people were furious. They called it the crime of 1873. William Jennings Bryan, one of the most famous politicians of the era, gave his legendary Cross of Gold speech in 1896, saying, "You shall not press down upon the brow of labor this crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold." This wasn't just about money. This was about power, about who controlled the economy. And silver became the symbol of resistance. Western states where silver was mined, they revolted. The populist movement was born. For decades, this battle raged. Silver versus gold. The people versus the banks. So the government had a problem. Western states were threatening to secede politically. Silver miners were going bankrupt. There was genuine risk of economic collapse in huge parts of the country. Their solution? Compromise. Kind of. In 1878, Congress passes the Bland-Allison Act, forcing the Treasury to buy up to $4 million worth of silver every month. Then in 1890, the Sherman Silver Purchase Act increases it even more. On the surface, this looks like a win for silver supporters. The government's buying silver. They're supporting the price. But here's what was really happening. They were buying the silver, sure, but they weren't returning to a silver standard. They were just warehousing it, creating artificial demand to keep prices stable enough that the Western states wouldn't revolt, but not actually restoring silver as money. This is manipulation, plain and simple. The government became the biggest player in the silver market, controlling prices through their purchasing decisions. And when they wanted to stop, 1893, the Panic of 1893 hits, one of the worst economic depressions in American history. And what does President Grover Cleveland do? He repeals the Sherman Silver Purchase Act. Silver prices crater. Mines close. Towns die. Entire regional economies collapse. And the banks? The gold standard supporters? They consolidate their power. The manipulation was complete. But the story doesn't end there. In the 20th century, the government discovered something crucial about silver. It wasn't just money. It was strategic. Silver is essential for photography, electronics, military applications, medical equipment. During both World Wars, silver demand exploded. And the government? They had warehouses full of it from all those purchase acts. Through the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, the government continued manipulating silver markets. They'd release stockpiles when prices got too high. They'd buy when mining output threatened to flood the market. Always controlling. Always manipulating. Here's something wild. Until 1964, American dimes, quarters, and half dollars were 90% silver. Real silver in your pocket. But by 1965, the government removed silver from coins entirely. Why? Because silver prices were rising. Industrial demand was skyrocketing. And people were hoarding coins, melting them down. The silver in the coins was worth more than the face value. So they switched to copper-nickel alloy. Worthless metal. And they told the public it was for efficiency. But really? They needed that silver for industrial purposes. And they didn't want regular people profiting from the increasing value. Throughout the rest of the century, this pattern continued. Government silver auctions, strategic stockpile releases, central bank sales, always timed to suppress prices when they got too high. So that brings us to today. And guess what? The manipulation never stopped. In 2020, Deutsche Bank, HSBC, and other major banks were fined hundreds of millions of dollars for manipulating precious metals markets, including silver. JPMorgan was hit with $1 billion fine in 2020 for precious metals spoofing. Spoofing is when traders place fake orders to manipulate prices, then cancel them before execution. They were caught red-handed. And these weren't rogue traders. This was systematic, institutional, ongoing for years. But here's what really fascinating. In January 2021, remember the GameStop short squeeze? The Reddit Wall Street Bets phenomenon. Right after that, the Reddit community started looking at silver. They noticed something. Silver is one of the most shorted assets on Earth. The paper silver market, futures contracts, derivatives, is estimated to be hundreds of times larger than the physical silver that actually exists. Think about that. Banks are selling promises of silver that doesn't exist. If everyone who owned paper silver demanded physical delivery, the system would collapse. And we're seeing signs of stress. Physical silver shortages. Premiums skyrocketing above spot price. Delivery delays. The manipulation is getting harder to maintain. So what have we learned? For 200 years, the U.S. government has manipulated silver prices. Sometimes overtly through legislation. Sometimes covertly through market operations. Sometimes in partnership with banks and industrial interests. Why did they do it? Control. When you control the money supply, you control the economy. When you control strategic resources, you control industry. And when you can manipulate prices, you can transfer wealth from ordinary people to powerful institutions. The crime of 1873 wasn't just about one law. It was about establishing a pattern of monetary manipulation that continues to this day. Today, investors and economists are watching silver closely, not just as an industrial metal, not just as a precious metal, but as a potential flashpoint, a place where the manipulation might finally break. Will it happen? I don't know. But what I do know is this. The 200-year war over silver isn't over. It's just entered a new phase. And now, at least you understand what you're watching unfold. Knowledge is power. And now you know. So what do you think? Did I miss anything? Are you team gold, team silver, or team I just want stable money? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button. Subscribe for more deep dives into economic history and financial manipulation.